Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week I want to sort out some storage for my wood turning chisels. See you in a minute. Now, as I may have mentioned a week or two ago, I'm starting to find that if I've got everything put away in its proper place, the shed is working so much better, and I'm beginning to enjoy working in here because I've got clear workbench when I come in the morning, and if it's in cupboards you're not getting dust everywhere, so I'm spending less time cleaning. So I've got one last thing that I really need to have a look at, and that's the chisels for the wood turning. Now, I don't use them a lot and I don't do a lot of wood turning, but for all that I seem to have accumulated an awful lot of chisels. I've got about 30 chisels at the moment, so I'm going to take the opportunity to see if I can get some storage, get some of those put away if not all, and anything that's left I'm going to take down to the men in shed and they can use them down there. As I say, I'm not using them much anyway, but at the moment they're just another bit of clutter that I'm just constantly moving around all the while. So we'll have a look at the problem. I've got a couple of bits left of the melamine MDF that I bought from the scrap store place before Christmas, and hopefully I can just use those last bits of that up as well, because I'd bought some hinges for it when I did the IKEA stroke Ukraine coloured cupboard in the corner, and they were the wrong ones, so hopefully I can use those up. I've got a scrap of MDF that came out of the men in shed because we don't usually use it much or like it much. It was something that we thought was plywood and it's actually turned out to be MDF. So let's have a look at the problem, have a look at what I hope will be the solutions. So there we go, we've got, as I say, an assortment of wood turning chisels which have just been put in drawers or left lying around under the lathe gathering dust. I'd like to get them into some sort of order. There's some smaller ones as well which need a home found for them. I'm just trying to get a rough idea on what I've got and sort of split them into two categories, if you like. I've been playing with a little bit of scrap plywood and a Forstner bit just to sort of get a feel for what I want to do with them. These aren't going to be something that I'll just be able to reach in and use and then put back. I'll have to get out half a dozen and put them by the lathe, but this is just to store them more than anything. And what I've found is that if I just put a 22mm hole in, I can get most of them, and I say most of them, that one's too big, you can see, through those holes, and they will stand vertically. So apart from having to make sure that in any sort of cabinet that distance is sufficient to get the longest chisel in, I've got that sorted. I've also got the spacing sorted for the big handles on these. They're all different handles, but the biggest of them, if I get those spacings at 50mm apart, I can stagger them and I can get some sort of quite tight storage organised. And now all I need to do is establish how many I can get into any cabinet of any given size, if you like. So that will be something to get onto in a minute or two. For the doors, I've got 3 of these MDF covered in melamine doors left that have come from the scrap store. I bought some hinges for the other cupboard, as I mentioned. They didn't fit properly because they were for an inset, for a face mounted door, and I wanted them inset on that one. So what I'm going to do is use those 4, which will give me cabinet sides that won't show, hence being able to use MDF, because you won't really see it. I'll have to give it a coat of paint, but other than that. So what I'm going to do, I sort of vaguely planned this out for the cabinet to go alongside all the lathe tools that I've put in a unit over there that I didn't sort of show that I was making. That will use 2 of the doors up. and then that will leave me one more, which I might well cut down into a shelf. I'll just show you in the corner as to where it's going and how it should work, I hope. So that was the unit that I just got one of these doors and cut into an offset sort of 100mm and 200mm back face to make the shelf, because I'd already got a storage unit that's the same width pretty much. So I thought that would make a reasonably nice unit, and that was specifically sized so that it was 600mm from top to bottom, which is the equivalent of 2 of these doors. So if I put 2 of those doors on the cabinet and put it in there somewhere about like that, that should give me all the storage I need for the chisels, or most of the chisels. And then I can just put, with this other piece here, I think I can make 2 half shelves like that. One will fit in there and one will fit at the other end of the cabinet, if you like, so that we've got a little bit more storage, shelf storage. These are alright, but they're a little bit wibbly wobbly and I'm just not using them very much anyway. So hopefully that's the plan. I've got to start off by making a carcass for the cabinet. Simple enough, MDF, about 160mm deep I think, which is the way it should work, optimum sizes for the chisels, and it'll want a top, a bottom and a shelf that'll be just below centre somewhere. And that's the material I've got, and I thought, well, I might as well salvage it now and see if I can get my cabinet out of it, because it'll only be the sides, top and bottom, made out of this, and the shelf inside, and you won't see it, and I can sand it down and paint it white and it should be okay. So that's the first thing. We'll clear the bench, get that up on it, get the track saw running, and we can cut it down into suitably sized pieces. Right, that's got me a kit of parts. I've got 2 sides, top and the bottom, back and an intermediate shelf. So really it just needs to screw and glue that together. Probably use the foaming PVA again for that, plus a bit of few screws in here and there. And I'll give it a clean up first, sand it down, and probably give the bits a coat of paint before I actually assemble it, because it'll be easier to paint afterwards. But we'll get it cleaned up, painted and popped together, and we'll be just about there, I think. Right, I've marked out the middle shelf. Everything's had a base coat of emulsion. That won't go in till the very end, I don't think, but we can then drill those out, get them routed out around the edges, and put the main carcass together and move it on from there. the glue up done, I'm just going to get all the clamps off, give it a sand over, ready for its last final coat of paint, and then we can hang the doors. Yeah, it should do me. It's not going to be something I can just quickly and easily get a specific chisel out, but I wouldn't want to be reaching over the lathe to do that anyway, so what will happen is when I come to do anything, I'll pull one out or two or three out that I need, shut the door up, keep the dirt out, and then carry on and work with them on a tray or something at the side. But that's got me what I wanted, I think. Just trial fitting the hinges. I've had to take the middle shelf out because it happened to coincide with a fixing on the hinge, but I think we've got round it with a little bit of selective filing out of the thing. Fortunately that hole there is canted over and it just avoids that, so I think I can still get full use of all of the fixings around it, but it's something I hadn't factored into the equation. I could actually join these two doors together and just use one top and bottom hinge actually if I really wanted to, but I think I'll stick with them so that I can just grab the doors separately. I've got a couple of knobs that came off something the other day. I just need to get some longer bolts to screw them in. But those will do for that. So at last we're in a situation where it can be just taken down apart now, final coat of paint, I'll stick it on the wall. Got the doors on, put the shelf inside, just stuck another one on the outside, make out the same stuff. That will go right into the corner, just give me a few more storage spaces for the smaller chisels. Right, so that's it, storage for 20 chisels in there that I can just pull out as and when I'm doing any wood turning, put them in a tray or something and use them, but at least they're out the way now. And there's another 10 or 11 round the corner. I've used all the chisels up that I've got, so there's 30 there, there's room for 31. If I get really stuck, I've got a small piece that I can still use as a shelf over this side somewhere as well, that I can keep and do another shelf like that one and in there. So I'm happy with that. Right, that's got a bit more storage in the shed, and it's stuff that, again, it's undercover, a lot of it, so we don't get too much dusting to do either. But more importantly, it's got those chisels out the way. They've been a bit of a nuisance for the last couple of years, really, on and off. And as I say, I didn't use them a lot, but at least now they're tidy and out the way and I can get them when I want to. And best of all, it hasn't cost anything really. Those doors were left over from the other project. I think they cost about 25 pence each. The knobs came off something else that I'd salvaged, I think. The hinges I'd already bought because I bought the wrong ones when I did the cupboard in the corner, and the MDF was something that was being thrown out at Menin Sheds, so it's cost, as I say, next to nothing, and it's tidied the place up a bit more. So I hope the video was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next time. We'll be doing something different. See you then. Bye.